Stephanie, and welcome to Wine Club. This is the playlist where I drink good wine while I whine about bad books. And unfortunately for spooky season, today's offender is Cackle by Rachel Harrison. So like I say in all my reviews, this is solely about the book and not about Harrison as a person. I'm sure she is absolutely lovely. Also, I will be revealing spoilers in this book. Not that there are that many, but you've been warned if you don't want to know what happens in this book. So before I read this, I had this sitting on my TBR for a long time as I was waiting for Halloween to read this witchy book. I mean, look at this cover. It screams magic and witches and everything spooky. Now, while there are some witches in this, I didn't think this was very magical, or at least it wasn't the kind of magic I was hoping for. But let's go ahead and see what this promised. All her life, Annie has played it nice and safe. After being unceremoniously dumped by her longtime boyfriend, she seeks a fresh start. Annie accepts a new teaching position and moves from Manhattan to a small village upstate. She's stunned by how perfect and picturesque the town is. The people are all friendly and warm. Her new apartment is dreamy too, aside from the oddly persistent spider infestation. Then Annie meets Sophie, beautiful, charming, magnetic Sophie, who takes a special interest in Annie and wants to be her friend. More importantly, she wants Annie to stop apologizing and start living for herself. That's how she lives. Annie can't help but gravitate toward the self-possessed Sophie and begins to spend more and more time with her, despite the fact that the rest of the townsfolk seem a little afraid of her. And okay, there are some things. Sophie's appearance is uncanny and ageless. Her mansion in the middle of the woods feels a bit unearthly. And does she seem to wield a certain power? But she couldn't be, could she? So, for starters, this book is slow. And I mean slow. There's really not a lot going on. We spend a lot of time watching our main girl, Annie, get coffee, visit the farmer's market, go to Sophie's house, cook with Sophie, have a ghost watch her from the mirror, agree to spend the night, get more coffee, go to work, buy a bottle of wine, and drink until she's blackout drunk. Which maybe I should do too. Text her ex and repeat. I kid you not, it is written like a laundry list. So on page 200, let's find 200. So on page 200, it reads, I get up, stop for coffee at the Good Mug, go to work, pretend the whole school doesn't suspect I've got evil powers, which is TBD, I guess. Come home, take a shower, eat an easy dinner like a frozen burrito or scrambled eggs or peanut butter on bread, drink a glass or bottle of wine, or occasionally something stronger, watch a TV show, and, depending on any romantic storylines in the show, maybe fit in a quick ugly cry or go straight to bed. Most weeknights, I'm asleep by 9 p.m., at the latest. I'll grant her that it's funny, but I don't need to read about your daily freaking life when I'm already living a life that's similar. I guess I'm not having an ugly cry because my relationship is okay, but it just really felt like there's not a lot of plot here, and it's mostly about the characters, which is unfortunate because I kind of think everyone kind of sucks. I feel really bad for the townspeople who kind of just have to deal with Sophie. It kind of reminded me of WandaVision on Disney, or Disney Plus, whatever, but where these people are kind of trapped and they know that they're trapped by something more powerful than them, so do they just play along so at least they live? Do they try and fight back? Do they not even care? Do they just embrace what's happened to them? It's just, what a sad way to live. It also reminded me of Arrested Development while I was reading this. And I thought of George Michael's girlfriend, Anne, whom everyone forgets. And I could not remember our protagonist's name, which funnily enough is Annie, for a very long time while reading this. But then I'm pretty sure Harrison heard me and decided that every single conversation would drop each character's name in it as much as possible. Conversations would read I can't do that, Sophie. Annie, why not? Because I'm not like you, Sophie. You could try, Annie. Will you be my friend, Annie? Yes, Sophie. Of course I'll be your friend. People don't talk like this. I rarely say anyone I know. I rarely say their names when I'm actually talking to them. Like, if I'm talking to my sister, I'm not just dropping her name every 2 seconds. She knows who she is. I will say I liked Annie at the beginning, but for a story that's supposed to be about her empowerment and realizing that she only needs validation from herself, which is a fantastic theme, it sucks because Annie gets progressively worse as the book goes on. I was really excited to see her come into her own and actually mimic another Anne from pop culture, this time the Parks and Rec version, when she realizes that she's Anne Perkins and changes herself to fit her boyfriend's lives and loses her identity in the men she dates. But we don't really get that. Annie just kind of becomes bitter and takes it out on others and drinks a ton. Same girl. Like, there's a scene where she goes on a date to a German-themed restaurant. Like, we have one here in Denver called Rhinehouse, and I actually really love it. It's themed, it's a little corny, but it's still fun. Annie here says that her ex would have secondhand embarrassment by drinking out of the steins, they'd be making fun of the decor, and she just generally seems miserable. I'd be a lot more understanding if her date took her to Chuck E. Cheese or something as they're both adults, but going to this German place could be fun in its own way. Like, it felt like she's actively trying to be miserable and just turns into a real bitch. I have no idea what her hobbies are, I guess, besides drink. Oh my god, I'm gonna be so drunk by the end of this episode. I don't know what she likes. Maybe, like, books are mentioned at one point. Or what makes her happy, because nothing seems to, besides thinking about the good times with her ex-boyfriend Sam and drinking. I know I've said this before, but it really made me think of Alex Day reads Twilight and the "why does nothing please you?" when he talks about Bella and how she doesn't seem to enjoy anything. Annie, in this, is even rude and dismissive of the one student who seems like a good kid, but then is all, "Oh, why are the kids so terrible and mean to me?" Maybe because they know you're awful, Annie. Maybe we start there. She starts out as a character that I wanted to root for. Sure, she's a bit immature and requires validation from men, but she's not an outright horrible person. It is interesting that she does note after meeting Sophie how Sophie never seems to have to pay for anything, and the rest of the town's citizens kind of seem scared of her, or at least go out of their way to appease her. Again, WandaVision. Why didn't Annie ever question this more? Why does she ignore signs that things might not be on the up and up with Sophie? Why does she not question where her powers come from? How does Annie even get powers? I want answers, but I don't think I'm going to be getting them. To me, the story fell kind of flat, which was a real bummer, as I had been waiting to read this for a long time. There's not much going on with the plot, and very minor subplots that don't really seem to matter in the end. I kept waiting for the scary stuff to ramp up, for the reveal that Sophie needs to, like, kill young women or something. No, they just have a weird-ass friendship where Annie thinks Sophie might drug her. Sophie indeed does drug Annie, and then Annie is all, let me eat and drink more things that you give me. Girl, where is your self-preservation? I also think I expected this to maybe turn a little sapphic, as Annie constantly mentions how unbelievably beautiful Sophie is. That's cool. You want a girlfriend? Go for it. Plus, Sophie is always calling Annie her pet, stroking her hair, carrying her around, and generally stalking her. It was a pretty toxic relationship, whether it was romantic or friendship. Sophie even keeps Annie's phone away from her in several instances. Another thing that kind of bugged me is this story relies a lot on the idea of men bad, women good. Which, sure, are there terrible men out there? Yes. Are there also terrible women? Yes. Sophie and Annie are proof of that. I do understand the message that this book was trying to tell us, that happiness comes from within, not validation from others, especially not from the people that you're attracted to. And that's great. That is a great message. But I think the book really missed the mark on getting that message across in the right way. Because by the end, Annie is awful. So it comes to a point where Sam comes back and she just ends up hurting him and really just revels in his pain. And then realizes that fear is a great way to have power over others. If this was a villain origin story, fine. I would buy that. Fear is a great way to have power over others. But this book really tries to paint that as a good thing. She is now her own woman, but yikes, she is kind of scary. Also, I didn't agree with this book's take on feminism. The point of feminism is that we get choices. And as long as we are free to make our choices, we should not care what another woman chooses. We get to choose what kind of life we lead. Want to be a stay-at-home mom? That's great, as long as you actively chose that. You want to be a working mom? Great, as long as you actively chose that. You want to be a dink, which is dual income, no kids? Great, as long as you chose that. Work part-time, volunteer? Great, as long as you chose that. Sophie seems to push the idea that feminism and true empowerment comes from being alone, which is kind of sad. Can you be happy and empowered and alone? Yes. Can you be happy and empowered and have family and friends? Yes. The point should be that Annie finally gets to choose who she is, and then if she wants to find a person who loves her for the real her, that's great. Or if she wants to be alone for a bit, that's great too. Annie never learns empowerment or how to be independent. She just goes from attaching herself to men to attaching herself to Sophie. It just didn't really feel like an empowering message to me. I also wanted more information about Sophie and her magic. What are her powers? Where does she get them? Are there any limitations to her powers? Who are the ghosts in her house? The world will never know. I'll never know. I guess we do kind of get a hint that the ghosts are people that she has killed, but we never really get clarification. And Annie doesn't seem bothered that Sophie is forever torturing these ghosts. These poor people who have already died, probably in horrific ways, are now stuck in the walls of her house forever, and she doesn't care. It's like the story wants the theme to be revenge equals empowerment, fear equals empowerment. Again, I don't think I would mind this as much if it was meant to be a negative arc, but the feeling that I get is that it's not. It's meant to be seen as a good thing that Annie is now using her powers to harm others. Someone really needs to revisit some quotes from Martin Luther King Jr. in the idea of darkness cannot drive out darkness. I saw someone on Goodreads dub this as cozy horror, cozy mysteries, and I kind of agree. There are a few scary moments or kind of horrifying things that happen, but it makes up 2% of the book. The rest, again, is just that laundry list of Annie's day-to-day life and her friendship with Sophie. Sadly, I also have to say the writing style didn't really work for me, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that this is very plot light. It's mostly, I did this, then I did that, I picked out this outfit, I put some cash in my bag, I drove here, I walked over to the coffee shop, I ordered 2 lattes. There are some sections that have some really great writing, but the others just felt like a first draft. If you can't tell, all in, I was pretty disappointed with this. I wanted a cute witchy read about a woman finding her power, both in herself and in magic. Instead, I got a boring bitchy read about a woman who gives control to others. Plus, the ending in this is so abrupt and a real about-face. So Annie is meeting up with Sam and then causes him to bleed out of his eyes and cracks his knees and enjoys hurting him. So was it wrong of him to still be with his new girlfriend while trying to get back with Annie? Yes. Yes, it was. But that punishment just felt way over the top for his transgressions. And then Annie has this like major epiphany about embracing her power and surrendering everything to get everything, and poof, she's a fully fledged witch who don't need no man and goes running back to Sophie. What? I don't get it. I felt like there was a lot of potential here, but I had to give this 2 stars at best. Now, I will say, when I bought this, I think I bought Such Sharp Teeth at like the same time, or like I had this sitting on my shelf. I had seen really good reviews about it, so I was super excited for it. Such Sharp Teeth was on sale at like Barnes & Noble or something, so I bought that. That is sitting on my shelf because I do like giving authors 2 tries. Maybe this just wasn't the particular book. I do think Harrison has some good humor, so I have hope for Such Sharp Teeth. And I have seen a lot of rave reviews for, I think it's called So Thirsty, like the vampire story that Rachel Harrison just came out with. I do want to check that out because I want to give her another chance. But for me, this just was not the like witchy read that I was looking for. But if you do have recommendations for good witchy reads, please, for the love of God, share them in the comments below. Otherwise, thanks for joining me at Wine Club.